And so, ladies and gentlemen, we move to the Leonardo da Vinci, the Salvator Mundi, the masterpiece by Leonardo of Christ the Saviour, previously in the collections of 3 kings of England. At 90 million, 140 million is bid. At 140 million, 200 million is bid. At 200 million, at 200 million, 200 million, please, 200 million is bid. 280 million, the increment of 10 million. Will you give me 290, Alex? 300. I thought so. 300 million. 320 million, we're still not done. At 320 million. For those of you following online, you may not have heard it. The bid was 350, was called on the telephone. At 350 million, 370 is bid. 370 million. At $370 million, ladies and gentlemen. 400 million. Leonardo Salvator Mundi selling here at Christie's. $400 million is the bid, and the piece is sold.
Art lovers, this is your place to talk all things art and design and the crazy things that go along with it. And speaking of crazy, when you add the auction house fees to that Leonardo da Vinci, it actually sold for $450 million. And I think we can all agree that paying nearly $500 million for anything is absurd. But no one wakes up one day, I don't care how rich you are, and just randomly decides to drop that amount of money on a painting. We had to get here somehow, so what the hell happened? We know auctions have existed for at least 2,500 years, and likely a lot longer. But there was actually a sale in New York in the early 1970s that might help explain all this. But first we need some context. The earliest recorded auction dates back to Greece around 500 BC, when privileged males would literally bid on their bride-to-be. The Romans would often use auctions to not only liquidate property, but also the spoils of war. And in a rather strange turn of events, the Roman Empire itself was actually put on the auction block. This happened after the Praetorian Guard murdered the previous emperor. Apparently, they could find no other way to select a new leader other than offering that position to the highest bidder. Fishermen in Germany and the Netherlands started auctioning their daily catches, discovering a more efficient and often more profitable way of moving their goods. And of course, as part of our own infamous history, slaves were commonly auctioned in America as we slowly tried to figure out how to live as decent human beings. Yeah, how's that going? But it likely wasn't until the 18th century that the idea of what we now think of as the modern auction was born. In the 1700s, both Christie's and Sotheby's were founded in London. Sotheby's actually started out selling books, and Christie's was formed not too much longer, also selling books, but would hold their first fine art sale in 1767. As both auction houses began to evolve, they started developing different departments to meet the needs of their clients. You of course had books and manuscripts, but you also had departments like jewelry and precious metals, coins and stamps, clocks and timepieces, and yes, fine art. But for centuries, these auctions weren't the place to see or be seen. They were often just considered efficient marketplaces where one dealer might be able to sell to another dealer. Can't find a buyer for that Caravaggio? Well, just send it to Sotheby's, and hopefully they'll have another dealer attending the auction that has a client just looking for that perfect picture of a lute player to hang above their sofa. But now I want to fast forward a couple hundred years and travel across the ocean. You see, since the conclusion of both world wars, the center of the art world had shifted from Europe to New York. American artists were now the hottest tickets in town, and the economic prosperity in America following the wars gave birth to a new type of collector. You no longer needed to be royalty to fancy yourself an art collector. You could be a taxi driver. Well, not exactly. It did help if you actually owned the taxi company. But look at this guy. No one is mistaking him for the Duke of Sussex. This is Robert Scull, a New York taxicab impresario and passionate collector of abstract expressionism and pop art. In the 1960s, Robert, along with his wife Ethel, were a constant presence on the New York social scene. They befriended artists and supported their careers, often acquiring works directly from their studios. And by the 1970s, they had assembled one hell of an art collection. So in 1973, they partnered with Sotheby's to sell 50 of these pieces in an auction that would bring significant changes to the way the contemporary art market operates. Skal wasn't going to be selling old masters. These were contemporary works by living artists. Artists like Jasper Johns, Robert Rauschenberg, Andy Warhol. These were the hot artists that everyone wanted to collect, but not many knew how to buy. They produced a lavish hardbound catalog, an example of which I have here. This is a really interesting piece of history, and I'll go into a little more depth on the catalog at the end of the video if you're interested. They staged pre-sale exhibitions in places like Switzerland that brought the creme de la creme of the art world together for dinners and after-parties. But not everyone was excited for the big sale. Many people, artists and collectors alike, were enraged, accusing the Skals and Sotheby's of exploiting the artists. But that didn't seem to bother Robert Skal, and he created a massive PR campaign surrounding the auction. He enticed some of the major news outlets of the day to cover the sale, and even had a documentary film crew record the entire thing. Ultimately, this sale would break a lot of records, with multiple pieces selling for many times their purchase price. This highlighted the gap between what an artist might earn in initially selling the work and what the collector might make by later selling the same thing. One example of this is Lot 32, Thaw by Robert Rauschenberg. Skal had originally purchased Thaw for $900, and on this fateful night, he sold it for $85,000. And here's Rauschenberg pushing Robert Skal in the sales room after the sale, accusing him of profiting from him working his ass off.
Christ's sake, you need to send me flowers. I've been working my ass off for you to make that profit. How about yours that you're going to sell now? I've been working for you too. We work for each other. You buy the next one, okay? Why not? At these prices, you buy the next one.
So how did this sale change the auction market? How did we go from this sale in 1973 to a Da Vinci selling for $450 million nearly 50 years later? The Skal auction was not only the sale that put modern and contemporary art on the map, but it started to turn these auctions into events. This was now the place to see and be seen. The modern art market would continue to grow. High society events and parties would start to parallel the auction calendar. Auction records would continue to be set, with prices going forever higher and higher. And in 2017, when Christie's had the opportunity to sell a rare Da Vinci, what type of sale did they put it in? Not a stuffy old master sale. This was a sale for post-war and contemporary art. And the rest, as they say, is history. So a quick note about this auction catalog. It really is a fascinating piece of art market history. I don't know who it originally belonged to, but I can assume that he was in that sales room that night at Sotheby's. In pencil, written below each picture, is the estimate the auction house had placed on each work. I've confirmed this because stuffed inside this catalog was the printout given to bidders that showed the actual pre-sale estimates. I was also fortunate that the prices realized sheet, obviously published after the sale, was stuffed inside this catalog too. I began to compare these sheets with the handwritten notes that are written beside each item in the catalog. The bottom number corresponds to what amount each work ultimately sold for, which leads me to assume the top number is where the bidding started. The owner of this catalog had also starred and written prices next to a handful of items on the list of estimates. I can only imagine these were the pieces he was hoping to win, and I thought for a moment if there was a work in which the final sales price fell below his handwritten numbers, he may have actually purchased that work, and perhaps I could track him down. But alas, if these truly were his high bids that night, he didn't win a damn thing. But I'm sure he had some good stories to tell. We talk art and design on this channel, And if auctions are your thing, I often live stream the big sales every spring and fall from New York. So make sure you're subscribed to follow along. As always, I am always honored that you watch my videos. Thank you so much. It truly means a lot. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Ciao.